Good morning and welcome to the Daily Ramble here on Claret and Booze. My name's Gary and I'm going to talk about last night's game against Lincoln. What an epic game it was. And I've got some other things to talk about as well that are quite interesting. Quite funny actually, especially around Michail Antonio. Right, so that later. Before we start, please, if you like tea and coffee, which most of us do, please visit our channel sponsors, the Kent and Sussex Tea Company. We all drink their stuff. I drink tea most of the day. I love tea. Anyway, enough of that. On to Lincoln last night. Now, it was a surprise selection, I suppose, because I think many of us expected some of the young kids to get a run out, and they didn't actually get a run out at all, apart from Obama, who got like 25 minutes at the end. And it sort of got me to be like, started me thinking, you know, what are the kids there for? Why have we got this academy? You know, if you can't play one or two kids against a side like Lincoln, when are you going to play them? Now, that's no disrespect to Lincoln, by the way, because that was a very hostile environment for us to play in last night. The crowd made a noise all the way through, very intimate. Would have been a surprise to some of the foreign players, some of the newbies as well, who'd not seen that before. So Mohamed Kudus, he started and he got 90 minutes. He seems to be a cup player at the moment, doesn't he? And he impressed. He impressed. You would expect him to impress against Lincoln, to be fair, but nonetheless, it was you know, they were a team who were in your face, and he showed his pace and he showed his quality quite a few times, especially early on when he played he beat the winger, he beat the defender and played a beautiful ball into Danny Ings, who was so sloppy. Made a right hash of it. So Kudus, you know, really had a good game. Not sure what Kudus has to do to actually get a start in the Premier League, but more on that later. So also who started, I mean, Danny Ings started up front on his own. What's the point in that? We saw what's the point, what the point was in that. Absolutely no point when he was dragged off after 66 minutes. Ridiculous. If you look at the back line, Mavropanos played very well, won 100% of his aerial battles. Very good on the floor as well. Ogbonna was very sloppy, very sloppy. That's the second game running. Ogbonna's been quite sloppy, which is a shame. I think he needs to play regular football in order to be on it, you know. That's not Ogbonna at the moment. So he didn't do too well. I think when, you know, Johnson was playing as left back, I was surprised at that, because Johnson, as we know, is leaving at the end of the year. Another one that's leaving is Fornals. He got a start as well. And I've got to say, watching the highlights, because none of us could see it live, but watching the highlights, we didn't really impress very much. In fact, we were lucky to get away with a win last night. Lincoln City had a goal disallowed. It was definitely offside, that's for sure. But there was one chance especially where Fabianski put in an amazing reflex save from a point-blank header. But you got to look at the striker and say, you don't put that above the keeper, right? It's got to be either side of the keeper. It's a goal. It was point-blank. Should have been a goal. They had other chances as well. We struggled. We really struggled. We didn't look good. And when you look at the lineup, you know, players who didn't look particularly good, Maxwell Cornet. They'd expect. He must have been desperate for a chance, right? He must have been desperate for a chance of first-team football. I know he gets it, and it's away to Lincoln, but why not take it? Why not grasp it? Why not do what Kudus did on the right-hand side and really go for it, right? Ben Rama, I don't think played very well either. Danny Ings was awful. It's very difficult to pick out star performers, but I would say that the two new boys, Mavropanos and Kudus, both played really well. Yeah, the crowd, this is quite interesting. It was going nowhere. It was 0-0. We were away to Lincoln. We were playing, I mean, the way that game ended up, they had more shots than us and more shots on target. I think it was 15 shots to them, 14 shots to us, 5 on target for them. I think three in 90 minutes on target against Lincoln. And we ended up scoring a really scruffy goal by Souček from a set piece. So it was a corner from Ben Rama, swung in, and, you know, massive legs, and Souček somehow got on the end of it. But that's how close we came to being knocked out of the League Cup. You know, we showed contempt, I guess, for Lincoln with that lineup, and we were really lucky to get away with it. Really lucky to get away with it. It was just terrible, just a terrible game of football. But on 66 minutes, well, before 60th minute, around about the 60th minute, the crowd started chanting for Mabama to come on the pitch, and they did it over and over again, constantly. And then eventually David Moyes listened, or made up his own mind, to put Mabama on. So it's coming to that, is it? It's coming to that, where we have to start begging to get Danny Ings off the pitch and get Mabama on. I mean, it's ridiculous, this squad seniority thing, when you look at the lineup last night, and you've got all those kids, all those great kids from last year. They must be sitting thinking to themselves, if I can't get a game against Lincoln, when am I going to get a game? Mark Noble, have a look at yourself, mate, because this is not what you promised. You promised a route through to the first team for that great set of players. And that is why we got rid of so many other young players, if you remember, was to make space for the even better youngsters that were coming through. All we've done is made space in the squad and on the bench. We ain't made space in the team. Now, I don't know, whether these kids are up to it or not, but, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good that West Ham, the Academy of Football, is taking that kind of approach. Now, regards Mohamed Kudus, this is something I mentioned on Sunday. Now, he's an attacking player. He hasn't got any Premier League experience. That only seems to apply to attacking players because Alvarez walked straight in with no Premier League experience. Down the other end, no, sorry, mate. We are West Ham. We're going to play with two central defensive midfielders and bore the arse off everybody. So we're definitely not going to put an attacking player in the team until he's learnt how to defend first, which is frankly not why you pay 50 million quid for Mohamed Kudus. This is depressing. I find this depressing. And I go back to, all of the stuff we were talking about at the beginning of the season about, Moyes disliking Steidten not getting on well. And again, I don't want to make a big thing of it, but, I think the proof is before your very eyes. If you consider the summer signings that were made, James Ward-Prowse was a Moyes pick, plays every game. Alvarez was made very public that when Steidten went to get Alvarez, that Moyes had been looking at him for the last couple of seasons, so he knew the player. Again, central defensive midfielder, and a good one, put straight in the side. And I don't disagree that both of those players should have been put straight in the side. But the two players that you could say are not Moyes signings, Mavropanos and Kudus, oh no, they get nowhere near the first team because they're not ready for it yet. And Billy McKinley commented on Kudus last night. He just said, we have to be mindful and patient. Mohamed Kudus has settled at the club really well. We can see there is a talented footballer who cares about football and wants to come in and contribute. How fucking patronising is that, eh? He's a fucking £50 million superstar from Ajax who has set the Dutch league alight. Every time he plays for Ghana, he scores a goal. But no, he wants to come in and contribute. I think maybe we just have to be mindful of the fact that it's a really tough league, the Premier League, and it's really difficult to come in and set it alight. We have to be patient with him, but we certainly think he's going to be a good player for us. Well, Billy, apart from being condescending, that is quite long term, what you've said there. So clearly that is the word from Moyes. That is what they're doing at the moment. This isn't a player who needs months and months on the bench and, just playing in relatively meaningless games. And Europe, mind you. The rumour is, had Bowen been fit for that last European game, it would have been him on the right, not Kudus, right? So any important game. So consider the next round of Carabao Cup. You think we're going to play the same team against Arsenal? You think Kudus is going to get a start and play 90 minutes? I can't see it myself. But going back to my point, a lot of people said that during the award ceremony, look at Moyes and Steidten sitting there having a laugh, showing each other their mobile phones and everything. Now, if you were one of those people, Steidten, Moyes, you wouldn't have a spat in front of the public, would you? I mean, you really wouldn't. So, listen, there are ways to get your own back. There are ways to, I don't doubt for a moment that Moyes is vengeful, and he's shown that kind of vengeful side with previous players who apparently he hadn't chosen. He just froze them out and didn't use them. Now, I know that Kudus, he sounds quite happy, so it's not as if he's been frozen out, but maybe that's something you can't do overtly, right? Maybe it's not something you can just do out in the open, right? But nonetheless, this is a great player who has been tipped to be an elite player. He cannot get into the West Ham team. He cannot get into the West Ham team. Now, what is that? Is that Moyes doesn't rate him? Or that Moyes didn't want him? Or simply the fact that Steidten signed him? And we know it was Steidten signing. Because it was a surprise signing, right? A lot of people wanted him. Arsenal wanted him. This is Steidten did well, and this is a way that David Moyes, can get his own back on Steidten, undermine Steidten by saying, what you bought here for 50 million. And Mavropanos, what you bought here for 20 million. Mavropanos ain't put a foot wrong so far whenever he's played. Again, he ain't been tested in the Premier League. But you look at Aguerd and you wonder, I know he's a left-sided player and a right-sided player, but you look at Aguerd and you think, when's he going to get dropped? Or are you just going to let him dig a deeper and deeper and deeper hole for himself? I think probably there's more likelihood that Moyes might play Mavropanos because he's a defender, and you know he loves defenders, then there is a chance that he will start Kudus anytime soon. But yeah, I think, my opinion, and it's only my opinion, I think the war between Steidten and Moyes, or Moyes against Steidten, has taken another turn, and this is how he's trying to embarrass and undermine the director of football, because he doesn't want a director of football. All right. So look, going in. So we've already covered the thing that West Ham were aiming that chant at David Moyes about bringing Mabama on. Who knows whether he would have been brought on or not. Either way, 1-0, scraping a 1-0 away to Lincoln. Ain't a good result. Off the back of 2 defeats, and we've got Sheffield United coming up on Saturday, where we will revert. This is my prediction. I don't think it's Nick's, but it's my prediction. We will revert to exactly the same setup, the same team. What we saw against Man City and the team that started against Brighton, that is our default first 11. I'm telling you now. It includes Souček and Alvarez, 2 central defensive midfielders. And that takes away 1 Flair place. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating, right? So come Saturday when we play Sheffield United, well, they've just lost 8-0. Now, what's Moyes going to do? Is he going to look at them and say, oh, they could be dangerous. They've just lost 8-0. So this is a team that's going straight back down again, going down as quick as they came up, right? So what does he do? What approach does he take? Safety first, of course. That's my opinion. That is what will happen. Kudus won't even get a look in against them. He might get the last 20 minutes. Go on and pretend to be Antonio's son. Go on, see what you can do. But going back to my theory about Moyes and Steidten, that's just a way to make Kudus look bad. Because last 20 minutes of a game, we've seen it. It doesn't impact a game. He might do against Sheffield United, I guess. I don't know, unless he gets kicked up in the air. But it's frankly, I find the mistreatment, and that's what it is, of Kudus. Been here a month now. And Mavropanos. Both of those players came in to play first team football. They should be in the team. But then that's where we are. Right? So, other stories out today. So there's bloody going on about, I think the standout player last night, by the way, I mean, apart from Kudus and Mavropanos, was Fabianski. Fabianski kept us in the cup, right? He really did. Another one that's a big fan of Kudus and said he really stood out last night was Stephen Kelly, because as you know, that just wasn't... he's a BBC pundit, and he was on the radio last night, which is the only place we could hear the game. We couldn't see it live, which is a bit pathetic. He said Mohamed Kudus really stood out. I think he's going to be one that pushes for the first team in a few weeks. Yeah, all right, Stephen. Try telling dear old David Moyes that. Right, so I want to bring you to a little fun story, and this is about the latest, the podcast last week that Antonio makes with Callum Wilson. I think Nick mentioned it, where he said we're going to finish above Liverpool and we're going to beat them. And as it turned out, he put in a terrible performance, right? As he said on the show this week, which Antonio didn't turn up to, he said, "Where's my car?" Has he run away after his shambles of a performance? The co-host Ricky Hayward-Williams added that Antonio had bottled it. And Wilson said, if he'd said that statement and gone and beaten Liverpool, Mikel would be sitting here tonight under any circumstances. The fact he made that prediction, had no goals, assists or shots on target, no aerial duels won, lost the ball 10 times, played 75 minutes before being dragged. For me personally, I wouldn't show my face either. That is cutting, isn't it? But it's true. It was a fucking awful performance by Mickey when he actually got a donkey on Sunday. But look, that is the ramble. I don't have any more news. There is no news. I wish there was. I wish there was something more interesting to talk about. Surely soon there'll be something interesting to talk about. Anyway, look, bear with us. I think all the channels are struggling for news content at the moment, so you're kind of praying for a game to come up, so you have got something to talk about, right? I've been checking the news sources every day. There's literally been nothing, and we would be just making a show about bugger all if we put one on. So with us, it's like less is more. We just make them when we got something to talk about. So I'm sure it'll get busy again soon, and there will be more shows. So sorry for the infrequency, but it will change. So look, until next time, see you soon, and come on, you wins.